What's up?
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey. Man, that music, I just get dance to it all the time.
I know.
Makes me want to move my butt. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another week of Case Files with Kat.
And Ashley.
And
Amanda McLauchlin.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh, she used her whole name. Like, she's fancy.
Super official. Everyone knows who we are. They don't care who we are.
Yeah.
They care who she is.
They do care. They don't really care. They
don't
us.
care about us is what I was saying. I mean, like they don't care about us.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We skipped a week last week because you can hear Ashley not sounding great.
And then I also had jury duty and stuff. Sorry, guys. I had a sinus infection.
Who picked you for jury duty? I mean, really? Like, did you go?
Every time.
They're all guilty.
I've been called 3 times for jury duty. All 3 times I don't actually get picked. I got picked the first time. That was the really dumb case. It wasn't even a criminal case. This one was going to be another dumb case. I was like, if I have to go to jury duty while I'm sick, at least they could give me a good freaking murder case or something.
You're like, I'm sick.
I need some true crime podcast material. Can you give me a good case? No, it was going to be something so stupid. More rich people arguing about who's getting richer, basically.
I was picked for jury duty, and I called Kat afterward. It was in October because it was this guy who. No, remember I got pulled for the jury, and this guy had held his girlfriend captive during the freeze last February, and then beat the ever living tar out of her. And I mean, he was creepy as sin. And then come to find out, like, he had all of these. Oh
my God. I got Kevin. No, hold on.
I had
Kevin. Sorry, Kevin. That was...
Okay. Sorry. Any rate, it turns out he had bazillion convictions for domestic violence. And so we gave him the maximum. So hopefully he'll be in prison for a very long time.
I hope so. I hope so. So, so you had to let the rich get richer or not.
The first case was the same thing. I don't want to be like arrested.
No, don't talk about it.
The first case was literally the richest people in our area arguing about which one of them was going to get richer. And this one was another similar case. Well,
I'm glad I was not picked. I'm surprised you weren't going... Listen, they're all guilty. And
I know.
I have a
Send
true
them
crime
all
podcast.
to jail.
I have a true crime podcast. They're all guilty.
Yes, time is ticking.
Time is ticking, y'all. Okay, so what are you drinking? Because it's...
Listen, I've been on medication for like a week and a half.
You won't get drunk?
No, I'm not gonna get drunk off this. So I'm drinking something from Kat's fridge, guys. I did not buy this on my own. I'm not being held captive. When I say this, I'm drinking Truly Pineapple, a hard seltzer.
Proud of you.
I wish I could say that it was super delicious, but
it's not.
I would be not being very truthful.
This is for my cousin's wife. My cousin's wife.
I'm sure lots of people enjoy. I just don't like carbonated stuff. So when I drink hard seltzers, it takes me...
It's too much.
A while. It's going to take me like an hour and a half to drink all of this.
It's 5%. Anyway. Yeah, so we had... the kids were in a show. They were in a play. What's up? I got some other listeners who were also... Their kids were also in that. And we did it right. We actually pre-gamed before the shows.
You pre-gamed for a children's play?
Absolutely. 100%.
Wow. All right.
We have to line up like 2 hours before the show to make sure we get like good seats. And we bring our chairs out, like tailgating. It's great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's fun. So like everybody's lined up, and then it was like mimosas in the morning on Sunday.
Everyone was getting drunk and watching children put on plays.
It was great. We were the best audience.
I love it.
No, it was great. Yeah.
I love it. Sounds great.
It was great. Everyone had a great time. It was great. Everybody laughed their butts off. It's true. It was really good. They did Once Upon a Mattress. It was so good. Those little kids. And I'm not going to say anything about the older kids, but the little kids knocked it out of the ballpark.
Wow.
Older kids have to match that.
Okay.
I'm just saying. No, they did. It was really a funny show.
What was the magic trick that I was got to see part of it?
No.
Oh, are they practicing for something? Or?
No.
So when I got here, Kat's daughter came in and said, I want to see a magic trick. And who says
Like,
no to
what is
that?
it? I was like, what is it?
Who says no to magic? Yeah, I want to see. It was pretty great, actually.
good.
Like, it wasn't a lie. Like, it was pretty
Hi,
great.
do you want to see my cat disappear? I mean, like, I don't know what kind of...
I'm like,
I
what
mean,
is
it's
it?
not my house. It's not my child. Yes, I would love to see this magic trick. Please show me.
So I was just like, what's happening? What's happening? And then you knocked on the door and I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going to
It was great. It really was great. So I was just curious if that was,
They're very talented.
if they were practicing for like a talent show or something.
I'm telling you, those girls, some of them with perfect pitch, man, makes me jealous. Because I'm just like, they sing those harmonies and I'm like, oh, I hear that. I can hear that. Anyway, okay, so today we have Amanda with us. We have Amanda with us, and I want her to give a snippet of why we even, what do you do? What's your day to day? Because that'll lead us into what we're gonna talk about.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I get to lead something called the Bay Area Alliance for Youth and Families. We're an organization. In fact, we're celebrating our 20th year of service to the community.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's
20
very
years.
exciting. And we've been focused on working primarily with school districts, but really trying to make our community safer for our kids. So over the last 20 years, it's looked a little different, you know, as we face different challenges to our kids, whether it be underage drinking or, early on, like I think they focused a lot on huffing and, other things that were really dangerous to kids.
Huffing
paint thinner or aerosols, glue, that kind of thing. And it's kind of ebbed and flowed, right? So then, in somewhere around 2009, we saw this huge spike in prescription drug abuse and misuse. And so that became, a big focus. Right now, we're hyper focused on fentanyl. Was
the prescription drugs like what parents had?
Yes, it was it still is, kids taking things out of parents' medicine cabinets. Or grandparents' medicine cabinets or neighbors' medicine cabinets. But then we also focus on like the whole kid because I think, I think it's easy to say, hey, so-and-so, 17-year-old kid, drugs are bad for you. Don't do drugs.
Very Nancy Reagan.
Okay, but if said 17-year-old has no idea where he's going to sleep tonight, hadn't had a solid meal in a day and a half that didn't include something, crackers or something the counselor gave him, then when his friend hands him a joint, you can't tell him not to take that because that's the way he is coping with his current existence. And so, it's something called social determinants of health, and it's similar to Maslow's hierarchy of need, but it's more tangible. And realizing that if communities don't have these things, and if families don't have these things, then we got to focus on those things before we can focus on extraneous factors. Right.
So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those who don't know, is that in order to survive, we all need a certain things, and that's
food, water, shelter. But social determinants of health go on to talk about healthcare, access to education, safe communities where they feel safe and nurtured. Those are really important. Because if you have a shelter but you don't have electricity, well, not quite so, and so we focus a lot on that because I believe that if we're not looking at the whole child, we're missing a lot of pieces. And I think mental health also plays a role in that. We have a lot of children who've experienced lots of childhood trauma for whatever reason, and kids or people who've experienced trauma, they have to have some way to get that out. And so what we need to be doing is helping focus on building up those positive things and then helping them work through whatever trauma that is in a positive way versus looking to drugs or alcohol or other things that could be detrimental. I really think even when you look at I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a PhD. But I think when you look at, like, if you think about the topics of your podcast, when you look at people who do evil things,
Yeah.
most of the time you can backtrack
Oh, yes.
to that trauma. I worked for CPS for years. I was a foster mom. It's the same exact thing. That's why we see these cycles over and over again, because of the trauma that mom experienced, and then she put that on her children. So now they're going through the trauma. And if we don't intervene to help them get out of that pattern, that cycle,
Right.
they're just destined to repeat it over and over again.
So one of the things that I think you just said that actually made my little, I don't know, spidey sense, like, why do I even do a podcast like this? Like, what was the impetus? Obviously there's trauma. Is it my way of trying to figure out what that trauma is? But I know I'm probably not alone, and all in our listeners, someone else is out there listening going, man, I wish I had that. I wish I had somebody showing me what was good in the world, instead of me just trying to get through it and survive it until adulthood, until I realized I could go get help, but being that middle person. And I ended up having that without even me knowing it. I had somebody showing me what it was like to be a stable household, or what a parent should do, or how it should be. And so I had that model, and not everybody else has that, but that's sort of what you're providing with the community members coming forward wanting to do that.
Absolutely. Because, there's some research that comes out of an organization in Minnesota called the Search Institute. And so they've developed these 40 developmental assets they say that all kids need to have. And the more they have, the more successful they're going to be.
What's it called?
It's called the 40 developmental assets in the Search Institute. It's great research. It's been around for a while. But it's that idea, like, we have risk and protective factors. So risk factors are all those traumas, right? All of the negative things that happen to us, but we need to be building those positives to balance out the negatives. But
there's a TV program.
Really? I don't know about that. But it's
weird. Okay.
It's super cool, because some things are as simple as a love of reading.
Okay.
But there's another one that's 3 or more caring adults that aren't family. And so building that in. And so, yes, I think a lot of kids have teachers. Right. But sometimes our kids have a hard time counting a teacher
as a person.
Yes, because they're paid, right? And so a lot of the focus we have is bringing other community adults in, so they get to see these people aren't paid to love you. They love you anyway.
Wow.
And so I think that's... I've just always believed. I mean, because I think I've been on the other side, right? Investigator for CPS.
Yeah.
I was putting out fires. That's all it was. It was trauma after trauma after trauma.
You're walking into the trauma. You're seeing the trauma, and then you were like, well, I can't fix it. You're
right. By the time it gets to some of these points, it's just catastrophic, right? And so I love being on this side because I get to kind of be the precursor to that. I tell you, I mean, I've had a lot of foster kids come through my home, and one of the most challenging situations I had was a teenager who had experienced more trauma than y'all can even fathom. And the system failed her over and over and over again. She tried to get their attention through various means, and they just wouldn't listen. And so when you think that is compounded on top of compounded on top of compounded, so then she comes to me and I'm trying to help her, but the state doesn't give you resources to help her. They're like, oh, go find a therapist. Well, we don't need just a therapist. We need a therapist who has some very specific skills here, because she's talking to a therapist and she's just spinning her tales, and well, she's not getting help because the therapist is like, oh, sweet girl, that's okay. Or the opposite. We went to this other therapist that told her she needed to leave her shit at the door of my house and not bring her evil spirits into my house. We left that place, and I told my daughter, I was like, I need you to know that I agree with nothing this woman said. Like, that is not.
How, as a therapist, do you tell that to somebody?
Well, and it was in the name of Christianity. So it was really extra stressful for me because I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Whoa, dog. She was talking about evil spirits and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like,
I mean, we have a protection candle for some fucking evil spirits, but I'm just like, that is a child.
That's a child.
That's a child.
Who has been through, y'all just can't even know. But any rate, I say that to be that I've just seen both sides of it. And I feel like with this particular child, and I will be honest, like, she left my care for a while. She went off. She has since kind of grown up. And so she has reached back out to me and she's apologized for some of the hiccups we had while she was with me. And, you know, like what I told,
she almost doesn't need to apologize.
And honestly. That's what I said, sweetie, like that. I mean, we all make mistakes and we really make mistakes in adolescence, right? Like that's not specific to a foster kid. That's all of us.
That's all of us.
That's what adolescence is kind of for, right?
Push those boundaries.
But let me tell you, and the trauma runs deep because there are things happening in her life right now that I'm like,
repeating a cycle.
Or feeling responsible for the people that put her in her situation.
Hello, I did that in my 40s.
Oh, let me tell you, times 50. We'll just put the word prostitution out there and I'll just, I mean, it's a sad world we live in. And I think in a post-COVID world, it's even more significant. And we're seeing those challenges younger and younger.
Why?
Because I think we as adults didn't know how to deal with the trauma of COVID. And so, you know, we're in our houses and we don't have healthy coping skills. So our kids didn't know how to behave. And so sometimes
hands up if your happy hours got earlier and earlier.
Right.
How much weight did most of us gain? We did not have healthy coping skills.
I think also, were we fighting more often because we were too much togetherness? And so the kids were kind of in the middle of that. And, you know, all kinds of things.
A lot of people, yeah.
Right. I'm not calling anyone out specifically.
No, like,
I'm just saying.
Jason's like, what the fuck? What are you telling people?
We really, but there were. I mean, there was an increase in domestic violence.
100%.
There was, you know, and so...
But the increase of domestic violence happened. They weren't calling us. We weren't the precursor. We were the after effects.
Yeah.
We were called by the police. They brought them to us after the police was already called. Instead of the way that it usually is I'm calling you before the police has to be involved.
So I can get out.
So homicides were up. Incidents with the police were up, but calls to the agencies started to go down because they couldn't get away enough to make those phone calls.
Well, calls for CPS were down
because
there was nobody to see and report. So think about all of those children who were home with no escape, with no caring adult outside of that home some of our kids in this generation, they live for school because it's their only opportunity to get out of whatever situation they're living in.
I mean, I think I was like that. School, you too? Yeah, school was like the happy place, the safe place.
It's, you know, so the more we can build in, like we've started a program, it's called Clear Crates. And so it was in a response to COVID and some of the lack of coping skills we saw. I don't know if you're familiar with Kiwi Crates. It's like a business like where you can order different kits, STEM or crafts or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So we created our own. It's called a Clear Crate, which stands for Create, Learn, Engage, and Reimagine. Oh. And so we've distributed them through the 4 local libraries here. And they went out on Tuesday at Helen Hall Library. There was a line around the library, and they were out in 10 minutes.
Amanda, that's amazing.
because I think people are realizing that they, and so we're getting these messages that are saying, thank you so much for these kids. We're learning how to be together as a family.
And they can't afford the $25 a month.
Some of them
could.
So expensive. Right. And some could, but a lot of them can't. And that's the goal, right? And maybe, we're 99.9% sure we have the funding for this again next year, but what happens the next year, and so trying to build up these strategies so that parents maybe can figure out, okay, well, so for instance, we got a message today from a mom, and her child had just learned about floating at daycare or at pre-K, and then the kit this month for her age group.
What do you mean floating?
It was like
floating in water,
like buoyancy and things like that. And so it comes with the kit, so you can practice in a pool or a bathtub. And she was like, "It's so cool because we'll get to practice and see what she actually learned and put it, in practice over the summer." So the summer kit that we have coming out, and that's the last one for this school year, is a family game night, because I think it is a lost art, right? Like,
go in my kitchen, it isn't here. But yes, so what happens at summer?
Well, and that's where we are thankful for public libraries. Think about that as being a tool. If you have a family that doesn't have great access to, say, air conditioning, it's a great way to take your kids and cool off at the library. They always have summer programming and incentives to read, plus then they have all these special, they'll have magicians come and they'll have,
reading time,
all these,
like that. So they may not have the crate.
No, but
they will have other
will have other things. And so this is, I'm not saying people are using our local libraries for sure.
Oh yeah.
But this sent them there in droves. There were people driving to all 4 libraries yesterday trying to find kits because one library didn't have any more in their age group.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
That is
It's really cool.
She's all, that's pretty cool. No, you just created something that is like transformational for our community, for the people, because we are in an affluent community for the most part, and then
the disparities are big.
But the disparities are huge, and then there's those schools and the population of those schools that if they don't have somebody like your organization that's just actively investing in these little things.
Yeah. Or even the people in the middle, Kat. If you think about it, if you don't have a lot of money, and it's not necessarily that you are at a poverty level,
right?
But you're in that middle space, and we've seen increases in prices and things like that.
Oh my God.
There's no money for the extras.
There isn't. You can't pay for theater class and dance class or...
I'll tell you about something else we're doing. Do you want to hear?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So in Friendswood, we started a program over COVID. The superintendent called and said, could y'all do something to sort of support these families? Because we had all these families who lost jobs or lost hours. And so we started something called FISD Cares. We took referrals directly from campus counselors. So they had to be a family enrolled in Friendswood ISD. And talk about disparity there, right? It's pretty great. And the heartbreaking stories that we have heard and helped families through crazy tragedies. But one of our board members helped us apply for a grant from State Farm last year. And through that grant, our goal, we have a committee, and we are working to create a system where we can pay for students to participate in extracurricular activities.
That is so awesome.
Right?
That is awesome.
They want to take karate. We're going to figure out a place for them to take karate, and we're going to get them the uniform, and we're going to work on transportation, right?
Because a lot of that is so, it's hard for a parent. I mean, because I played softball as a kid,
expensive.
And I knew how expensive it was.
Yeah.
And so many people that didn't get to participate just because of their friend, and it's not fair, and it's
and
awesome
again,
that you guys are doing that.
It's one of those developmental assets. It's something else that gives that kid a leg up, because then they have something maybe they're good at.
Yeah.
That they can make good friends. That maybe they're on the same. Nobody's judging you based on what you're wearing to school, because everybody's wearing the same uniform, right?
Yeah.
And so we're really excited. We have Be Someone Sports League that's going to be part of it, and Tara Dance. And I mean, they're really committed to helping us, find affordable ways for these kids to participate in extracurriculars. And I think it'll be a game changer for some kids, for sure.
That's
so awesome. That's
Sorry.
awesome. So when I first started getting involved with your organization, I think it was maybe the first luncheon I'd ever gone to. And I remember thinking,
I'm kind of nervous.
No, don't be nervous. Okay. My kids are still like tiny, itty bitty. And I just remember thinking, I am so old, because like that was like the light went off, because I was like, I thought I was kind of cool. And then it occurred to me like, oh no. You were so behind the times. Like lingo is one whole thing, but I learned so much, and I just like went around going, you are not going to believe what you don't know. You need to show up to one of these luncheons. You need to have them come to your school. You need to have them come talk to your PTA. You need to have these people to come and give this presentation, because this presentation blew my mind. But it was like all of these little things that everyone who's maybe like 20 understands and knows, but like I'm old.
Like, give an example.
Was it the teenage bedroom?
It was the teenage bedroom setup.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it was. Talk about it.
It's crazy, but we have this show we take on the road. I've even been as far as Denton, Texas with it. But basically it's a teenage bedroom, and we set it up. We have a blow up mattress, and we make it, and then we have all of these sort of things in this teenage bedroom that are maybe not what you think they are. So they've been transformed into hiding spots or things like that.
So it's like a bottle of Coke. That looks like a bottle of Coke, like just like something.
And it unscrews.
And it unscrews, and I'm like, well, shit.
And usually we have both kind, and so you can't tell.
That's what it was. She was like, "Can you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference?" And then there. So it was like the Coke. It was what else?
We have a Sharpie that has a hollowed out end, so it could fit either a blunt or it could fit.
Did you
not
know
a blunt?
that?
It could fit a joint or pills. It's crazy because it also writes, so it's pretty legit.
So if you don't know how to find that, you're not.
A lot of parents just don't know. Like, I get lots of parents still, that have no idea what 420 is. So they don't even know if their kids have.
They don't know what 420 is.
No.
That's like older than us.
Well, yeah, it is, but it's,
and there are some people out there who have not lived the lifestyle.
Right.
Who have never smoked weed.
Who don't have the
What?
trauma.
But y'all, I think you have to think about, like, still, I think even our generation, let's talk about the weed of the 60s and 70s. I call it your mama's marijuana, right?
This is not your mama's marijuana.
Okay,
now.
it's not. It is, that's 6 to 7% THC. Okay, I have someone that I've met through this organization and found in her child's bedroom a cake bar with 96% THC.
Stop it.
So you have a 15-year-old with a very developing brain smoking 96% THC. So again, like we don't have any opinion on adults. Adults have the right to make their own decisions, right?
You're on a show where we're drinking alcohol.
right, because you're both over 21, right? Our focus is on kids because we know their brains are not fully developed till they're 25. Right. And we understand at 21, they pretty much have free reign. But I'm concerned about a generation because they're going, oh, well,
They have social media. We didn't.
They have apps like Telegram that you can put it in and they will deliver to your street. Hi, I'm 15 years old and I used a Telegram app and Apple Pay to pay you to drop off a cake bar for me.
Which could have anything in it.
So maybe it's a cake bar. Maybe it's something that's laced with fentanyl, right? This is where we, and
if parents aren't aware of there's something that they can, like, if they aren't aware of this app.
Right. And I think we have to remind parents, like, okay, so maybe that's your thing. Maybe you do smoke weed. Maybe you eat edibles, whatever. But I think you need to think about what your kids are ingesting. I think you need to think about what your kids are. Because, like, we're seeing...
If they find it,
right,
what are they going to...
Because it happens over and over again, where kids get a hold of a brownie. They take it to school, they share it, okay? Well, what happens to a kid when they have a brownie? Well, they want to eat the whole dang thing, one sitting, because they're not feeling the effects. It's just good, and, well, then it leads to all sorts of problems. Yeah. So you have middle school kids with racing hearts, and, like, the school has no idea what just happened, and they brought an edible from home. Or maybe they brought several edibles and shared with their table at lunch. And so then you have, like, 7 kids hospitalized.
Damn.
But I don't have children.
Or you have a bag of weed that's found and somebody touches it with their bare hands and immediately have a reaction and are forced to be rushed to the hospital.
What is the reaction to?
Well, not sure, but it's happened over and over again with fentanyl because they're lacing weed with fentanyl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So just because your friend says this is safe, or just because our kids have this really big misconception that marijuana will have no impact on them because it's just an herb. Well, it's an herb, but you're smoking it out of an electronic cigarette. So it's not...
So can you talk about electronic cigarettes? Because that's the other thing. The second meeting I went to, let's talk about vaping. And I was like, vaping. And then I'm like, don't vape, y'all.
Well, and it's
so
funny because, I mean, for adults... I mean, I do believe that it's probably safer than a combustible cigarette. So those who are trying to quit smoking or, finding a safer alternative, great.
Really,
but what happened is we had an entire generation. We had all but eradicated combustible cigarettes in young people.
I mean, we really did.
Until these electronic cigarettes hit big. Well, we'll blame it on Juul. It was Juul. Because at the height of Juul, they were worth more than SpaceX and Airbnb combined.
Stop it.
Oh my God.
And so when you think about it.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew they were a big deal, but I didn't know they were.
And SpaceX, Airbnb and SpaceX.
And do you know their primary marketing strategy?
Young people.
Instagram.
Which is young people.
Young
people.
Oh my God.
So we have a whole generation of kids.
They were all Fruit Loop flavored.
And they are addicted to nicotine. Like, I have kids who have literally cried to me. Like, Miss Amanda, I understand this is bad for me and I really want to quit, but it's not that easy. Well, they can't on their own go get nicotine patches, nicotine gum because they're not old enough. So what strategies can we find to help these children become unaddicted? Because the American Heart Association says that nicotine is as addictive as heroin. And if you've ever met somebody who's tried to quit smoking, they probably agree with you.
I have. And I've met people who've tried to take heroin and that's why they won't do it again, because they won't go through the withdrawal again.
But
That's
imagine
just that alone,
these kids that they don't have coping skills to begin with. Then they've experienced this trauma, so then they turn to e-cigarettes to deal with the trauma, and now they have an addiction.
So you're dealing with, I hate the term high risk, but that is how they're defined in our...
Some of them aren't just high risk, though. When you're talking about vaping, you're not talking about high risk.
They're not necessarily high risk.
You're talking about cheerleaders.
Everybody.
You're talking about drill team. You're talking about athletes.
But that's why I don't like the term high risk, because that just means that they're poor. Ish. They aren't the cheerleader crowd.
And I'll be honest with you, if you went to some of our more low income school districts, you're not going to see a lot of vaping.
Well, that's expensive.
They're smoking joints, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't like the term high risk, because I think that listen.
It's more at risk. And we have 12 factors for at risk, which include failing a class. So, I think you're looking at a lot of risk factors, being transient, having disciplinary challenges. But I think that there are high performing kids out there that are addicted to nicotine.
But I also think there are high performing kids or high high income level kids that were living through trauma and that were not paying attention.
1,000%.
And I'm, having being in the work that I'm doing, with domestic violence and sexual assault, that is 100% the people who are in those realms. They're just not being paid attention to because they're doing okay. They're not.
Well, they have the resources to cover it.
They're not transient, but
yeah.
So they're the ones who are going to end up having some addiction issues and having some really horrible coping skills because no one's paying attention.
It comes down to those coping skills. Yeah. And I think we can get dismissive, oh, it's just nicotine. It's just weed. But that's not really it. First of all, we don't want it to be their coping skill. We want them to have other coping skills that are A, legal for kids, that are B, less expensive, and C, that are going to be doable no matter where you are. Not like you didn't get an allowance this week or you lost your job so you can't get it. But, things like taking a walk, a bath, having some sort of skill. Maybe it's just journaling. That's a lost art, right? It could be simple as playing with your animal or figuring out, something that you can do with your dog. I think I'm looking at a puzzle on top of your furniture up there. I hadn't done a puzzle since I was a kid, and I did puzzles during COVID because that was one of my coping skills, right? Yeah. Because I realized that Netflix could not be my only coping skill because A, it kept reminding me that, I'd been watching it for so long I want to turn it off. But, also you can't.
Yes, I'm still watching. Yes. Stop judging me.
Stop judging. But, it's things like clear crates. It's things learning how to do things as a family. Mm-hmm. And as a parent, and so that's just my encouragement to you, even Kat, is how am I demonstrating to my kids how I deal with stress? Because
I have a true crime podcast that we.
Okay, no. But that's something that they know is important to you and that you're committed to, and it
takes work and time, and
right,
all of
and
those
so
things, yeah.
And they have a dad that has great. Passion for his work as well as you do. Y'all focus on politics and things
art.
That are
Yeah.
Very, social justice and those things are really important because those are a shared thing that you all share and that you talk about together. It's not something that you do separate and apart from your children. But I think a lot of times we especially think about it. If I'm working a sort of thankless job where I get paid an hourly wage, I don't get sick time, I don't get vacation, don't have insurance, and I come home every day and I am dead tired. The last thing that I want to do is play with kids, right?
100%.
So do you go to that box of wine and and it's not, that's not bad, that's not good, but maybe the first thing you do is, hey kids, let's walk around the block. Let's, do something that allows us to breathe, allows us to appreciate the nature around us. That was one of our clear crates. We did a nature scavenger hunt. And I'm telling you, we got so much positive feedback about it because it was something that, and a nature scavenger hunt is free. It's free. So.
And if you don't have to think about it, and that's the thing, we're lucky that this exists, that the Alliance exists in our area. And so what can people in other areas do? We're lucky that you exist here. Well, what if you're living in...
I think that there are lots of organizations like ours. So we started out as a community coalition, and there are community coalitions across the nation. You can actually find a list of that at CADCA, CADCA, on their website. They're sort of a clearinghouse for all the substance abuse coalitions in the nation. Okay. They even have them in Puerto Rico, things like that. And so, hopefully they're super active where they are. And I know in Texas, we got this extra funding. A lot of coalitions did. To focus on it's called Community Coalition Partnership COVID funds, and it was to focus on stress reduction and trauma healing, which is how the Clear Crates were born. But we've really tried to use it to sort of build that. Or like one of the projects we did was Safe Spaces, because who do you think in the school, if you look at the school setting, who's struggling the most right now as far as staff?
The teachers. I mean, I don't know.
The counselors.
Oh, well, yeah. There's not enough.
Right? Because everybody comes to them.
There's not enough.
There's not enough. And they have to do school scheduling. They have to make sure kids have the right credits to graduate.
Oh, I'm thinking elementary school. That's why. Yeah, there's not enough.
No, there's not. And so one of the things we did, we gave them each $275 to spend between Lakeshore and Barnes & Noble to kind of build up their resources.
Lakeshore Learning Center is like a teacher supply store here.
Yeah. And so it's actually a national chain.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And, but just to give them the opportunity, like maybe they do support groups for kids who are experiencing self-harm, and so maybe they bought workbooks for that, or maybe they work with little ones and so they got manipulatives and fidget things, and because they needed more to be able to pour out more, right? And so that's been pretty big. And then we do a curriculum-based support group. It's a 12 students to one facilitator small group that we do. And so we've been doing that on a lot of campuses to kind of free those counselors up.
Is your circle of care?
No, it's called CBSG, Curriculum-Based Support Group.
Okay.
And so it's a 10-week session with one of our paid facilitators, and they do it with the children. And I mean, we've heard amazing feedback, because again, it's that extra adult.
Yeah.
And then we also took something off the plate of the counselor that's probably bless their hearts.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that, guess for totally, because this is what my speech for the Toastmasters competition is on Saturday. It's about social media and mental health. Can you talk about that and like where the dangers of that? Because not just in Ashley's theme of disappearances, but like social media is a very dangerous place for children, and people don't always think about that, but like, so, like nearly half of all children worldwide have experienced sexual harassment on social media. Sexual harassment children.
To give presentations to the kids at higher up, because there have been several that have been, they thought they were talking to someone who was really into them, like interested in them.
Catfishing, is that?
Kind of, but they would ask for nudes, and the kids sent them, and then that person turned around and said, "We're going to send them to your parents and to your job, and
if you don't send me money."
He wanted to kill himself because he thought this person was really in love with him, really cared about him, really wanted to be with him, and then found out it was a lie, first of all, and then was scared to death of what was going to happen. He was so embarrassed and regretted it and had no idea what to do. And so that's a common thing, like, that I see for my job. Like, I don't work directly with children, but I speak to a lot of them about the dangers of social media. And that's one thing that comes up a lot is this.
We learned from the office
and stuff.
We learned from the Office of the Attorney General here in Texas how there have been, it was in a matter of hours that this one girl left her house after beginning a conversation with somebody who she thought she knew and trusted. And it was like, oh, we were in that same class. And it was a matter of hours of texting with this person on Facebook that she left her home without shoes on and just vanished. Hours. And it's just like, what? Like, what is happening in this person's life? So I don't know, but maybe you have some insight, as this is part of it.
I think you have to look at that whole trauma. And so that means you have this hole that you're trying to fill. Mm-hmm. And so I'll talk about my child, my teenager. Okay. And my teenager ran away the Friday before spring break.
Wow.
And I knew that there were some challenges. I had found she had a device somebody had given her, like a Galaxy notebook or something like that. And when I'd gone to look, let me tell you, I've never let my child out. Well, I think she bought it with her money when she lived at a shelter before she came to me, kind of thing.
Okay.
And she also had a phone through me, plus she had a district-issued laptop. So we got 3 things here going. Okay. So I find the Galaxy notebook, and let me tell you, I would never let my child have WhatsApp now. But like there are sexting video. I mean, like you can see these grown men jacking off, and she's responding in this video chat that was saved. Let me tell you that I took that puppy away and destroyed it. But y'all. Grown men. And she had sort of an asphyxiation too on being a blood. And so it was kind of strange. So we had some struggles there as well.
Blood versus Crips, y'all.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So we fast forward and we had issues. And so she had a cell phone that I bought her. And I had a monitoring app on it. So I could see when she would text and what pictures and that kind of thing. And we just had some trust issues, and so there were times that I would take it. It was required to stay in the kitchen, plugged in overnight, kind of thing, because I just didn't feel like she needed free range, right?
That's a good habit for everybody.
And so at the time of her, when she ran away, she did not have her phone, but a boy had given her a cell phone without data. And so she had gone home to my parents the weekend before, and she asked my mom for the Wi-Fi password. Well, my mom doesn't get it, right? So
What's
she's
without data mean?
Like, so it didn't have a data plan. So it wasn't, you couldn't call, but when you were on Wi-Fi, you could text. You could still use social media, et cetera, like that. And so she had that with her. And then when the police came after she ran away, they dug through her district-issued laptop. And OMG. And like, I consider myself very in the know. And I can tell you, I have poured through that laptop over the course of months, and I never found these things. Like, I found that she downloaded songs like Deep Throat Cupcake, right? So I'm like, and I think, obviously it's scary that she can download that at school. But I think also then we begin to talk about the hidden apps that she had on her computer, and the police just start, like, she had her own account on Facebook. It was separate than the one that I knew her through. And there were at least 200 strange men who she was friends with on that Facebook. And the things she's posting and the selfies and
on the school issued, district issued laptop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't they did not have stuff in place to keep that from happening?
They can't. They don't. I had talked to them previously about it, like several times, and they were like, well, you could just not, she can just not have a computer. And I mean, for academic purposes, you're like, well.
Are you just wanting her to fail?
Right. So it was just very, very stressful. Thankfully, because I was terrified. She is the prime candidate to be a victim of sex trafficking in Houston, Texas, right? Like, poster child. Thankfully, she ran away with a little boy and was staying with him and his family. Yes, while we had posters going out, like Doug still had vinyl draft, and all that. Yeah. So like he was sending it out. It was on all the mom pages because I just wanted to make sure she was safe. But I'm just telling you, like, it's out there, and the apps on the phone, like Telegram, there's so many others.
There was another one was a calculator.
So there is a calculator app, and it's like, it's not really a calculator. It's a space or a folder to hide photos or other apps behind it. And so that's how a lot of kids go undetected. But you can hide nudes back there. You can
calculator.
Yeah, it's just calculator.
And it looks like a calculator, but it's not the one that comes on the phone preloaded. Right. So pay attention to that.
I don't remember the name of it, and you might know it. That documentary where there was a team of people, and the woman was an adult, but she pretended to be younger and younger, and the messages that she would receive from grown men escalated the younger she pretended to be. And like she would transform herself to, because she would meet some of them. They would transfer her to look young, and she was pretending, in this one scene that they showed, she was pretending to be 15. This guy, adult male, met her at a hotel and was trying to convince her to go up to his room with her and saying that you promised me you were going to do all of these things. You said that you weren't a child, that you were going to do all of these things.
Is this To Catch a Predator?
No,
Are you sure? It was a documentary?
No, it was a documentary, and she posts, like, they show all of these messages, and like she posted her Facebook profile or Instagram profile, and within 5 minutes she was getting messages. When she pretended to be 8, I think, and then 15. I think she was also 11 in one of them. I think she started out as an 11-year-old, and then they wanted to see what would happen if she went younger because they lied about her age to get the Instagram account. And it was to show how dangerous it is and how quickly it happens and how what these people say to the children to groom them.
Did they arrest those people? Damn.
Yeah, it was like years long process.
It's just heartbreaking.
Undercover, underage?
Maybe. But it was terrifying it was so disturbing, I guess, to see like how quickly people are just sitting there looking for that kind of stuff. And kids don't know better. I mean, especially if they have things going on. You know, they want someone who's going to give them attention. I was going to
say, it's not even not knowing better. It's believing, because they just want someone to love them, to care about them, to fill that hole that is, and that's
she looks young.
Yeah, they made her look really young, and a lot of, they disguised her voice because some of them wanted to video chat with her or talk to her on the phone when they thought she was an 8-year-old. And so they disguised her voice to sound like an 8-year-old. And these grown men were trying to talk to her.
Is it a Connecticut mom? Does that sound familiar?
I would have to go back and look.
I'm gonna go find it.
Sick.
Yeah, it was a.
Oh my God.
It was a really.
But I think it doesn't even have to be as much like that. I think we live in a sex trafficking community.
We absolutely do.
And in our community.
Yeah,
and
Houston,
so we have these major
Clear Lake,
highways.
100%.
Because you got 45, 59,
10.
I-10. Mm-hmm. And that is the way we get drugs. That is the way we get sex traffickers, those major highways. And so I think we have to be extra vigilant, because it's not even just the danger of the app, but it creates easy access.
Right.
But
I also think like the app itself, the social media apps themselves create a dangerous place for teens and for young people, because they start seeing things they think are real, like the way someone looks.
Yeah.
And then they start comparing themselves, and then they start to feel like they're not good enough, and they start to have addiction issues. My therapist was like, because I was telling her about my Toastmaster speech, and she was like, "What's it about?" And I told her, and she was like, she's like, "I don't have kids, but if I ever have kids, I'll never let them on social media." And I said, "Why?" She says, "We have created a whole new generation of narcissists with body dysmorphia, with this desire to consistently be liked and shared and whatever." And I'm just like, oh my God, that's terrifying.
And another thing was that, so in a lot of cases, like they interviewed a bunch of people that had been arrested for child-related crimes.
In this documentary?
No, not in that documentary. Okay. In research of like doing the presentation and stuff. Okay. And they said they got a lot of the information about the children from things the child, or even what the parents were posting about the child. So when this stranger came to them, they already knew what their interests were. They already knew what their nicknames were, where they went to school, those kinds of things. So it was easier for them to gain the trust of the child, because they already knew so much from the things that were being posted
guilty
publicly. And
my nephew, he was small, and his mom had been posting pictures, like they had a photo shoot, and it was through like photo sharing app, like Google Photos or something like that, but it was public. And all of a sudden she had these random men that were liking these pictures of him and stuff. And it was like, she was like, oh no, never mind. But I just wanted to read this thing. I found this yesterday. A friend posted this and I thought, oh. So think about our generation, right? So imagine something embarrassing happened to you at school when you were in the 7th grade. Everyone laughed. It was awful and you were mortified. Then a few weeks passed and everyone found new things to laugh about and they moved on. You don't forget how embarrassed you were, but you could move on too. Now imagine you did something embarrassing in 7th grade and everyone laughed and it was awful, but someone also caught it on Snapchat and turned it into a meme and a TikTok, and everyone in school saw it and then took a screenshot of it and spread it further, and you couldn't get away from it, and no one forgot, and you couldn't either, and people were still sharing it months later.
Years later, have you seen these grown-ass people who were like, yeah, that's me in that meme, and they're like grown up? You're like, oh God. I still use that meme.
I think we got to help them do better, because I'm lucky. Like, if I made a mistake when I was in high school, there weren't 1,000 cameras in my face. And if you had a camera and you took a picture, well, you had to go to Eckerd Drugs to have it developed. And then you had to pick it up a week later. And then by then, they probably ended up in a box somewhere, never to be seen again, right?
Until somebody dies, and then you end up, a family member has to go through those, like, why do they have that? And it's not even that funny. Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different world that our kids are having to live in.
So we have kids at risk. There's lots of at-risk kids and all different levels of risk. Mm-hmm. There's just lots of different levels. What can we do?
I think we can stay ahead of the curve. I think I have parents who tell me a lot of times, like, well, but Johnny said, and you're like, whoa. So you're expecting your kid to educate you on the things that he's at risk for? Yeah. It's a balance of power that is out of whack, right? So I think being knowledgeable, putting yourself in positions and situations where you can learn. I tell parents all the time, if you pay the mortgage, then you absolutely have the right to go in your child's room and look at things. That's how this colleague found the 96% THC cake bar in her child's room. But I think also then by sharing what you learn, because maybe it's the parent that is working and can never go to that PTA meeting to hear said information that needs to hear it most. And so being a conduit and using your social influence for positivity to share information, and not to be a scaremonger, but to be a realist and really help kids by helping their parents be more aware of what is around. And let me tell you, if you want to be a caring individual, don't be a creepy individual, but be a caring individual who's part of a kid's life. So if you're a neighbor, like I've got neighbor, it's a family of 6, they've got 4 kids, and I've become aunt because they don't have any family here. So I pick them up from dancing, or I do birthdays. I do, that's okay to develop relationships, because they will be lasting. Because more than ever, we also don't have family in the same way that we did when I was growing up, where I lived and I could walk to my grandparents' house, right? Yeah. We don't have that. We don't have it. So
if they don't have an organization like the Alliance near them,
I think you could even call United Way. You could use a local, like a lot of times there's a 211 service that's involved in your community, and say what you're looking for. I think libraries too are a huge place. Public libraries are not a thing of the past. They are trying to be more and more relevant. And I think they're a great resource for, things in the community and finding connection.
One of the things that I know that I don't know that exists in other places other than around here, because of the way our taxes work and things. We have education foundations too. And so if those don't exist where somebody is, like, how does one, like, or if there isn't an alliance, like, how does one start that, like, for themselves, a community coalition?
Honestly, I mean, you could always reach out to me. Our website is thealliancebayarea.org. And you can email us at contact at thealliancebayarea.org. Be happy to help, do some brainstorming to figure out how you can find that. There's
funds out there. There has to be.
Limited, probably, but you don't always have to have funds to start, right?
But there's a
starts with community of individuals who want to impact change in their community, and that's what you need to start. That's it.
I'm asking all the questions here, but feel free to hop in.
I don't know what I mean. I don't. You're the parent. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I know. I am the parent.
I'm here learning.
I'm also the parent that has a beer drinking true crime podcast.
I mentor young kids,
you do.
In high school and college, and a lot of their trauma comes from their parents, and it's really hard to break them from, like, they are so held back. These stories I hear when I listen to these kids when they're just talking amongst themselves is terrifying to me. That the things that parents don't want them to go to college because they want them to stay home and pay the family bills or whatever. A lot of their problems start at home, and it just it's sad. It's really sad. And having program, we're lucky because around here we have a lot of nonprofits and a lot of organizations and community support that focuses on children, but not every community has that. And it's sad. It's definitely something I think more communities should have for these kids.
And maybe that's connecting with the chambers of commerce. Maybe there's a nonprofit that exists that people don't readily know about.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of focus on trafficking. There's a lot of focus on children in that realm. But that's not preventative. That's reactionary. It's not the education and prevention outreach that's happening. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the ways that I've seen you and heard you. And you guys have this very special place in our community. And
we're very unique because we're part of a school district, and very few organizations like ours that receive the kind of funding that we receive are part of a school district. But some of them are through political subdivisions. So like the state of Texas is divided into 11 political subdivisions. And I ran two coalitions before I came here for the Southeast Texas Regional Planning Commission, which is the subdivision that covers like Beaumont, Port Arthur area. Mm-hmm. So I think that is something to look at. I think a lot of times there is a state agency, whether it's Health and Human Services Commission or something of that nature, that funds these kinds of programs in their state, and they probably have a clearinghouse of organizations that that might fit the bill, and just know that we're all different in how we approach it. Like the coalitions I ran before are very different than the coalition I run now. But I think I think CADCA, also the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, which is the federal agency that kind of oversees a lot of what we're talking about. They have a lot of resources as well.
And right now in some of our states, and it's unfortunate, but right now, even having these conversations with parents in a school setting, so in a PTA, there are hurdles that we need to jump. And it's not just for you. You seem to have gotten in there because it's something that's less about, I guess their body or sexuality, or that they're kind of going past that and just looking at the drug and alcohol use. But there's so much, it's such a bigger problem. And so we are having, as we try to prevent domestic and sexual violence, we are trying to teach children not about the sex part, but about healthy boundaries, about self-care, and about having some self-esteem. And that's what we're trying to teach people. Like, you may not be learning this at home because, like you said, some of the trauma is coming straight from their home life.
Yeah. One of the biggest or hardest things that I've noticed because my age range that I deal with is primarily at the end of high school, college age, is that your parents' burdens are not necessarily your burdens.
Oof.
And a lot of them think that it is, and they can't break away from that, and they carry that with them. And it's really hard to see children or young adults struggle as much. And I think it's really important that they get access to mental health younger, as much as possible, that, it's more affordable if they have access to it. Like what Higher Up does, providing the mental health care for them. I think that's amazing. I think a big thing is the mental health. And a lot of kids don't have access to that because they come from, either there's a stigma around it, or they don't have the funds for it, or just there's just nowhere to go, or they don't know where to go.
Well, there's lots of limited resources because there's a finite amount of money, and I'm going to take my hat off for my organization, and I'm going to say, when Kat's talking about our state and the legislation issues, we are legislating ourselves into a black hole. And so instead of focusing on funding the necessary resources to help people, we are instead legislating the helpers further and further away from the people that need it. So there are going to be new boundaries. This new legislative session says that no one at school can even ask about your feelings without opt-in parent permission.
Oh, God.
But if the parent's the one doing the abusing...
But I mean, you can't, because they I got to be careful.
I honestly feel so bad for children nowadays. I really do. Like I said, the things I see and hear,
we can't go into schools to talk about human trafficking. We can't go into schools to talk about risks of dating violence. We can't go
and God forbid they are
opt-in.
part of the LGBTQ community.
Well, that's what they're trying to.
Sorry. Yeah. No, I understand.
They're trying to. You can't talk.
But that's what I'm
about
saying.
Yeah.
Just there's so many things that are happening in these children's lives, and they have nowhere to go. Or you know what I mean? And it's really sad. And like a lot of them that I've talked to don't feel like they deserve anything. They don't feel like they deserve the programs or the help or to go to college, or they don't feel like they deserve anything more than what they have, because they've been taught that that's what they're always going to be.
And then suicide rates go up.
Right. Or you have these kids who are addicted to nicotine. Yeah. You're talking about, they can't afford them. They can't, like, I feel like when I was a senior in high school, getting ready for my next phase of life, I felt free, right? I felt clear. I felt like, okay, I just finished this. I never want to go back. But I'm going to push forward. I didn't have these things hanging on me, right? Doesn't mean I didn't have trauma. I definitely had trauma. But I didn't have the weight of social media. I didn't have the weight of addiction that started because I wanted to be cool in the bathrooms with the other kids. Mm. I didn't have those things that sort of caused barriers for my success. I had other barriers, but I think this generation has so many barriers that we can't fathom. I mean, social media alone, cell phone use alone, just those things are, I don't know. I tell parents all the time, I think TikTok's the devil. I think it's just amazing what kids can, and it's just like YouTube, right? You scroll and then another one pops up. But like if you search TikTok, I don't have it, for vaping, y'all, the videos, I mean, thousands connected to advertisements, connected to, and that's just vaping. That has nothing to do with body image. That has nothing to do with Mean Girls. That has nothing to do with all the other challenges. And I think, I didn't have that. I mean, when I was a kid, we had 3 channels that we had to go up to the TV to turn the dial.
The U and the HZ, whatever it was. I don't remember anymore. But yeah, you had to go.
My rotary dial phone.
Yeah, you had to, like our kids were like, what? You had to get up and go to the TV? Like, yes.
I mean, I am pre-cordless phone old, right? Like the people even had cordless phones, and that was all the rage, right? But I had one with a cord, and I would just
long cord,
long cord, so it could go in my room.
You close the door.
Yeah, like I couldn't even get my mom to consider call waiting. That was like, major life change. Not one kid knows what call waiting is, but it's just, it's amazing. My mom can't do call waiting on her cell phone.
Call waiting on cell phones.
Well, yeah.
But no one knows how to use it. Everyone's like, shit, I think I'm going to hang up on you.
My mother cannot do it. Like, it's just impossible.
So difficult. Mm-hmm. We're old. Thank you for sharing your depressing information with us. I really appreciate it.
That's why I told you. I'm like, I don't know.
No, it's okay. But I mean, we don't know what we don't know.
I know.
Right?
Well, so at the chamber, that we are all part of, I'm speaking on fentanyl in June as the whatever luncheon speaker or whatever. And I told Sherry, I was like, okay, but it's really sad and depressing. Are you sure that we want to do this? And
I'll do a cheer like in the middle of it. Like, hey,
so important.
It's so important.
I can tell you, I started drinking and doing drugs when I was 11 and
14.
So I would have really appreciated having information, no matter how sad or depressing it is, because I didn't have anything.
And having community members who were like, you know what, I should seek something out, or I should
mental health in school, or anyone in the school who even gave a shit.
Right.
But they're so overloaded.
Hi, Ashley.
Yeah.
Welcome to school. I'm so glad to see you. Like,
why
we missed
are you drunk
that,
at 10 a.m. In 6th grade?
Right.
But they're overwhelmed. I'm not I mean, they are really overwhelmed and underpaid and understaffed.
I had friends who in junior high who were selling acid and smoking weed and cigarettes and drinking, and I was just like, "Hi, I'm your straight and sober friend." Not straight.
See, and
but,
I was,
that whole thing.
The upright.
I was upright, but I wasn't healthy.
I was upright. I definitely wasn't healthy.
I just thought I was, I live this life, and I mean, I was advocating for condoms in schools because, I had friends that were really scared of, AIDS. This was my generation, right? And so I volunteered at AIDS services, and I did, I just wanted to save the world, and I got really out in the world and worked for an AIDS organization in college, and then went to CPS, and all of a sudden I'm like,
this sucks. The saving the world thing sucks.
When I was that age, for me, it was my environment. I thought it was normal.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So many kids do
that what I was doing. I mean, I kind of knew that not everyone was doing it, but I didn't know what the effects would be or what it would lead to. Or
that was just the norm for you.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different norm. Yeah.
My guardians were the ones giving me the alcohol. They weren't giving me the drugs, but they were giving me the alcohol. That led to the people that were giving me drugs. It was,
slippery slope.
Yay.
But that's the thing, right? Is like, we don't want our kids to repeat those mistakes. Like, it's not like we're saying this is cool and I want to know that my daughter is, smoking weed at 14 behind, whatever. It's just, how do you help them, right? How do you help them to make different choices? I think one thing I can see with Kat, your children have the opportunity to be involved in anything that sparks their passion. I think that is huge for them, because I think it doesn't mean that they're never going to make a mistake or make a choice you would prefer they not make. But it does mean that they have a passion for something they're really good at. Mm-hmm. They get a lot of praise and support from mom and dad, because you were at 3 performances this weekend, whether or not you had to day drink to get there. But I think that those
made it a lot more fun, y'all.
those are the key impacts that we as parents, as this generation, we have to work harder.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you. If you want to reach out to her, you can by emailing at
contact@thealliancebayarea.org.
And if they want to see your website,
thealliancebayarea.org.
All right. And
if someone wants to have one of your classes, like the teen bedroom and stuff, they just contact you.
We are ready to rock and roll. Yeah, for
and
sure.
how far do y'all go? I know you're kind of locally based, but how far?
Our primary outreach is Harris and Galveston counties, but you
could get them in touch with people in their area.
I'm a bleeding heart. I'll work with you.
Yeah, we'll share resources.
We'll post all of the links and stuff on our social media to find everybody.
All right. Okay, so thank you everybody for still listening. Ashley's got a story next week. We don't know what it is, but she's going to do it.
Yes.
No deaths, no jury duty. We're good. We're good.
No sinus infection.
No sinus infection. So you're going to sound like that. But anyway, if you're still listening, thank you. And thank you, Amanda, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I mean,
yes,
honestly,
thank you. Honestly, it's very important information.
It's so important. But okay. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Until then, just take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. Bye.
Bye.